do a 1 hour trade. We're going to basically go into a little more depth of how to find a 1 hour trade earlier so that you're positioned and you can take advantage of a move quicker and get a better entry point, right? So the first thing is going to be where we find what's called the support line, right? Which is what we talked in the last video, is finding the current support, right? And how we do that is real simple, is when we're looking at the current support zones, right? We use what's called the 1 hour RSIs, right? So you can see here the 1 hour RSI. So for us, the 1 hour RSI, when it starts to head up, which happens here, this to us basically would be an area of support. And I'm going to make that white, right? Because you can see here the 1 hour RSI starts to head up, then it comes back down. And we can see again that when that 1 hour comes back down, we can see that we're setting another support line here before we start to head up. And then as we start to move here, here's the pull down here, and there's another support line, and here's a 1 hour full drop, and then we can see again that we're here again, and then the 1 hour starts to push up, and you can see every single time that the 1 hour RSI hits the bottom here, those are basically areas that we're seeing as support zones and movements to where it is. So that's kind of like for an understanding of the current areas where we could see support, right? Now for this, the 1 hour is going to have a little more of a quicker pullback area. And a lot of times when you look for support or resistance, you want to use what's called a 4 hour, right? And the 4 hour is going to give you less areas that, for the support and give you a bigger range. Like, so for instance, when the 4 hour came down, right, and it found its bottom area, this was a support line for the 4 hour, right? When the 4 hour made its move to the top and started to head down, right, we found that here was the next support line. And this one actually lined up with the 1 hour that we already had. And then as it pushed up, here was the fall down here. And this is where we can see where the next 4 hour support is. So first 4 hour support comes down, hits here, shows us an area of support. It continues to go down. We get our deeper support. And then when it starts to move up, we can see that we're getting our high zone. Now when it pulls back down after it's moved. Now remember, all trades do the same thing, right? Let me show you again that what we're looking at. When there is a moon, right? Here's your moon. There is a pump. Then after a pump, it pulls back to what? To a trend, which happens here, right? So in every moon, in every time frame, there is a moon pump, a pullback, and a trend pump, and that's basically how it goes. Now during this time frame, just like the 1 hour, the 4 hour is just used for support, right? So we can see here that we have our lower support area on our 4 hour, which we have. When it did make its move up and it had its 4 hour moon, the 4 hour pump, our 4 hour time frame pump, there was a pullback. That pullback is the support area once again, which literally retouches the same area that it was on earlier. And then it starts to push up, and then it pulled back again. And this time it pulled back into this section here for its pullback, and then it pushed up. And now what we're looking at is the current pullback, which happened right here. So when you use the 4 hour, you can see that you have these areas of support where the original support is on the bottom here. And notice that after that first pump, it retraced all the way back to its original spot here. And then when it got its trend, it made its next push up, and then it pulled back, and this one held a little bit better. And the reason why it held is because now there is volume above the 0 line. And this is where we're going to learn about volume and understanding that pullbacks normally pull back to the original settings where the support is. And then as they start to gain momentum and volume, they'll pull back less and less and then become bigger runners. And that's all because of volume being above the 0 line, right? And there's a line here on your moon indicators that right in the middle here, this is the 0 line. Above it is positive numbers, below it is negative. When things are negative volume, you're going to get that lower pull. We like to operate where things are above, right? So a good trade on the overall would be when the volume breaks above, shows support, or at least breaks above, comes back down, and then the next move When it breaks above again is the trade that we want to take advantage of, because that's when momentum is actually building. Okay, but we're going to learn this on lower time frames currently so that we can get our entries in correctly, right? So now that we understand that a trade is going to do the same pattern on every single time frame, you don't have to get confused on, well, what time frame am I looking at? We do 1 hour trades. We use 4 hour supports, right? So here our RSIs are bottomed out. This is a support. Our RSIs bottomed out before it went back up. This is our support. Our RSI bottomed out again. This is our support. So now we have our 4 hour support zones, which we just got another one here, and we can tell that these are the areas of support. These are current support zones, right? And that's going to allow us to basically say to ourselves, okay, these are targets that when we see pullbacks or anything like that, these are the areas that we can look at and say, these are buying zones and support zones that we can look at. Currently, the price that we're working with XRP, we can see that we have a support zone right here at 61.37. Now that is with the RSI pullback. So if this does have any type of pullback on price, then we would expect that area, this area here, to be our support zone, allow us to get a buy-in at that point and push up. And once again, that's dictated by watching our RSI. So if the RSI pulls back on the 4 hour here and bottoms out, and we see it that hit our target of support area, then we're in a good position to take advantage of that or look for the next 4 hour support zone. But that's a lesson that we'll dig in a little bit further, and that's more about position trading, or what we call accumulation. But this is just an understanding of, we are looking for the current support. So when the current support is, once we know where the 4 hour support is, we go to the 1 hour, and we can see here that our 1 hour RSI is coming down, but notice how here it's starting to bend, which means the current price that we're at here is showing support once again at this area here of 61.59, 61. So this means that we're starting to build momentum here, right? The main thing, like I said, to understand is that once you understand volume, right, you can see the difference in what's going to move and how to get into momentum. So let's dig into a section here where we're going to get into where looking at a point of entry, which would be lower time frames, because the lower time frames are going to dictate what's coming ahead of these current time frames, right? So by going to a 15-minute trade, right, we can see that we're starting to see the uptake, right? So you see how the 15-minute is bottomed out here. That's basically a sign of support, and that happens to be right where our 4 hour support and our 1 hour support is. And you see how it's breaking up with the money. This is price action here. And we have our price action moving up at this point. And that's going to basically say, okay, this was a good area of support. And notice that when we look at the 15-minute, we had a pullback that hit this area, right? Then we had a bounce that went above, and then it pulled back again and it hit this entry again. So once you go down the road a little bit, you'll start to see that there's areas where you want to get into at the best prices. And we do have some 200 moving average here that we can target as well. But this allows you to get the best entries and be more patient before you jump in a trade. Because what you want is this, right? See how the volume went below, it broke up. It didn't hold support, but it went here and started to head up. That right there is an area that we would look at for an entry point to take advantage of this next move here, because it's building momentum, right? So the next thing that we're going to do here on the video 3, day 4, the next video is to go into the 15-minute and focus on the basis of a 15-minute entry point, or what we call confirmation of trade, right? So the 15-minute will be a time frame that confirms a possible 1 hour trade. The 30-minute will be a confirmation of an early entry into a 1 hour trade, and then the 1 hour trade will be confirmation into the extent of how far we're going. So that will be the next video. So on this video here, we just wanted to show you that support and resistance exist in every single trade. So understanding when you know what everyone else is doing and how they're trading, then you can kind of have an idea of where you should be at certain points. Excuse me. But where you should be and where you can look for entries on bounces or support and resistance, so you kind of understand what everyone's looking at. The only difference is we'll be focusing on current support and resistance areas, which are these right here, versus the deeper ones over here and so forth. So this is what we're going to show you now, and the next video will be focusing on the 15-minute confirmation trade, which leads into a 30-minute trade into the 1 hour, guys. So appreciate it. And remember, all trades act the same. As you can see, they go up, they come down, and then you buy the bottom of the move. You don't jump in early, and you stay focused on that. So catch you in the next video. And this is where we're going to go over, now that you understand where the support and resistance come from on the 4 hour and the 1 hour, now we can move to the next part, which is how to execute a 15-minute confirmational trade into a 30-minute entry